"Do you see the man in the moon?" my older sister asked me. I stalled, looking through the telescope. "He's right there. He looks like he's going, ooh, with his mouth." I continued to try to see him, but it was no use. My dad chimed in. "Are you looking for a full body? It's just the man's face, his eyes and mouth." I looked into the eyepiece intently. The desire to make out the face was overwhelming. I could feel my sister's and father's eyes on me, and once again, I felt left out as a little brother. The three of us regularly looked through my dad's telescope at the night sky, and I was always the one that struggled to make out the various stars and planets. However, that night it seemed I was lucky. The moon's various craters and basaltic plains appeared to snap into place to clearly form a face. I could now make out the man's face effortlessly. "I see it. His eyes are there." I gestured with my hands while still looking through the eyepiece. "And his mouth is there." "There you go," my dad said, gently removing me from the telescope. "Once you see it, you'll never unsee it. It will always be there." He then gathered up his optical instruments and went back inside the house, leaving me and my sister alone to continue looking upward. Even when looking at nothing in particular, the night sky had a hold on me at that young age. No doubt it had to do with the random space and science factoids my dad would impart onto us. I remember when he told me that the very star you look at may already be burnt out, since the light from something that far away takes years to reach our planet. The depths of my mind would buzz at such knowledge, though I couldn't fully comprehend something so vast at that age. Eventually, my sister said, "You actually saw the man in the moon." "Yup," I responded confidently. "Oh," she said, "I thought maybe you were just pretending because you were jealous that Dad and I could see it." My sister had done these types of mind games before, using subtle suggestions to make me feel like a liar, when I knew full well that I was telling the truth. When I again confirmed that I saw it, she pointed up at the sky and said, "Do you see Orion's belt over there?" I struggled to make out exactly which cluster of stars she was gesturing towards. Our dad had pointed out the belt before, claiming it made Orion an easy constellation to spot, but I forgot the rules on how to find it. I felt like she wanted another moment where I couldn't find something, so I tried hard not to give her the satisfaction. "Which ones exactly?" I asked. "Right there. They are pretty bright," she said unhelpfully. I could tell that she would not sincerely help me find it, judging from the limited clue that she had given me. I scanned the sky a little while longer before admitting defeat. "I guess not." My sister was silent for a moment, perhaps soaking in the victory, before she said, "You know, there is also a man in the sun." "Oh, really?" I said, not extremely interested since there was no sun at that moment, and I felt like this was another thing that she could lay claim to, potentially with her father. "Yup, you can see his face. He looks scary and terrifying though, not at all like the man in the moon." "How can you see it?" Even at 5 years old, I knew not to look at the sun. "There are ways," she responded, before trailing off and falling silent. I made a mental note to investigate this further another time from someone other than my sister. The opportunity came the next day when I asked my dad how one could possibly look at the sun. "Never look at the sun," he said, looking at me with a cocked eyebrow. But then he added, "Well, actually, you can make a pinhole projector." He shuffled around his desk area until he found a stack of index cards. He then took a pushpin out of the corkboard over his desk and put a hole in the middle of one of the cards. "What you need to do," he said, picking up another index card that did not have a hole in it, "is put your back to the sun. Then you place this index card with the hole over your shoulder, like so. You put this other index card in front of it a little bit lower, and the sun will be projected onto this index card. You got it?" "Yeah," I said, taking the cards and immediately going outside to test the new device. As I stood there in my backyard with my back to the sun, the index cards held as my father instructed, my sister came outside. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm looking at the sun," I responded, seeing the small lighted circle on the index card. "I don't see a face." My sister looked over at the index card. "You'll never see it that way." Yeah, the effect in the card was fairly anticlimactic. "How did you see it?" "I'll show you." My sister gestured for me to follow her. She brought me to her bedroom where she pulled out her 6th grade history book. She took a moment to find the page and then flipped the book around to me, pointing at a picture that she described as the Aztec Sunstone, a circular stone sculpture that featured a face in the center. It reminded me of a gorilla baring its teeth. The Aztecs were able to see the man in the sun, and they made sculptures of what the face looked like, she explained. An eerie sensation came over me as I looked at the image. I wondered how the Aztecs were able to look at the sun long enough to carve that stone. The implication of an ancient secret had a mystical quality that I couldn't help but fixate on. My 6th birthday was coming up, and when my father asked me what I wanted, I told him I wanted a way to look at the sun. He rolled his eyes and asked if there was anything else. And yeah, there were some Transformers that I wanted as well. He nodded at this approvingly, and when my birthday came, I received everything that I had asked for, and then some. In between all the openings of Transformers and a pop-up book of the solar system, I also received a pair of ISO and CE certified solar eclipse glasses. My father explained that these were safe to look directly at the sun with, but to never take them off while doing so. The glasses certainly looked a lot more high-tech than the index cards. After my birthday party was over, I went outside, slapped them on, and then looked up at the sun. While it was better than seeing a small lighted pin dot on a card, it still wasn't quite what I was expecting. I could not see enough details. If the face was there, it was impossible to tell with the way these glasses made the normally blue sky black, and the sun an orange glowing dot with diminishing orange light coming off of it. Also, it seemed like the sun should be larger. It was almost as though the glasses shrank the massive star. I had become frustrated with the whole thing, and knocked on my sister's bedroom door to ask how anyone, even an ancient Aztec, could make out a face in the sun when you can't even look directly at it. "Look at it quickly," she said. "A moment won't hurt you." I went back outside and, with the summer afternoon sun, I did just that. Without my solar eclipse glasses, I quickly glanced up at the sun. It was fast and I didn't linger, but it still hurt my eyes. Without the glasses, the sun was so much larger. I thought about how deceptive those glasses were. The sun was huge. I saw a few after images floating around my eyes. It looked like the random shapes you see when you close your eyes and start to notice drifting shapes in the blackness. I blinked a few times and I looked at the ground, and then raised my head to look again at the sun, eyes wide open. I kept my gaze longer this time, but I could only last a few seconds. In those few seconds, I thought I could make out details of the sun, not unlike what I started noticing with the moon that one night. As I rubbed my eyes and I looked around my backpack, I saw more curious, floating shapes that lingered for longer this time. I tried to follow them and noticed one in particular that stood out from the rest. The bared teeth, the hollowed-out eyes. It was the face from the Aztec sunstone, the man in the sun. In my childish mind, I saw this as proof that the face was there. I ran to my sister while the image was still burned into my eyes to report my findings. I told her what happened, and how I could see the image right there as we spoke, since the after image was still floating around. "You see it right now?" she asked. "Yeah," I confirmed. And as though this might be some type of magical phenomenon, I asked, "You can't see it, right?" "No, but that's not how you see it anyway. You have to see it while you're looking at the sun. If you don't see it actually on the sun, it doesn't count." After she closed the door, I stood in the hallway, contemplating why it didn't count. But soon, I gathered up my courage and I went back outside. I once again determinedly snapped my head up towards the sun. As I looked for details in that intense blaze, my eyes had the worst pain I had ever felt in my short life. But I was resolute to continue staring for far longer than a few seconds. I stared for minutes. I continued to gaze into that blinding light until I saw the now familiar face manifest inside that burning orb. I finally snapped my head away and rubbed my eyes. The pain was unbearable. When I opened them again, it was as though the sun was still right in front of me, with that unnerving face in it. The after image was so strong that I thought I might still be looking at the sun somehow. I couldn't make out anything directly in front of me. My central vision was utterly destroyed. I stumbled while making my way towards the back door. My hands touched the corner of the house, feeling brick and mortar. I grabbed for the door. I pulled it open and haltingly put my foot inside, making sure not to trip on the raised door frame. I yelled out for my dad, and when my cries went unanswered, I remembered that he wasn't home. My sister came out of her room. "Did you see it?" I aimed my eyes towards the floor to try and see her in my peripheral vision, but it seemed an impossible technique. In the center of my vision was still that incredibly bright spot with the floating face. "Yes, I saw it, but I can't." "You can't see?" she asked, as though she expected as much. "No." I started to cry before I could say more. I was thinking about my dad's telescope, thinking about how I would never again see anything pointed out in the night sky. I wanted to learn more about the stars and the planets. My cries became the heaving, frantic cries of a child who knew something terrible had happened. My sister remained calm and unaffected, I wasn't sure if this was indifference or something else. To my ridiculously childish and naive mind, I still believed she didn't intend this outcome, that there had been some mistake in how things were presented and how they played out. However, those fallacious thoughts were crushed when I heard her steps calmly make their way back to her bedroom. Her door softly clicked shut, and I was left in the living room by myself. The sun forever in front of me. I'm a part of the United States Army Special Forces, the Green Berets, and I have been for several years now. In my tenure, I've deployed multiple times to Afghanistan, Iraq, a few months in Syria, several African countries. I've been to all 4 corners of the globe, and I've seen my fair share of the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with being a part of SOCOM. I've got plenty of stories, some more interesting than others, but almost all of them are heavily classified behind red tape that will never be declassified until I'm dead and gone. However, there is an incident a few nights ago that stuck out from all the others, mostly because one, unlike all of our other operations that took us to a combat zone across the distant hemisphere, this one happened right at home in our backyard. The enemies weren't a foreign proxy, a group of insurgents. It wasn't even human. Stuff from that night is still weird, and it's not like Command is going to give us any answers. It's the reason I'm bypassing everything I've been told, disregarding and putting my ass on the line even if I use false information and withhold names. Plenty of innocent people have died, as you'll find out, and Upper Command would sooner bury it than acknowledge their deaths than give their families closure. I don't have all of the answers of what happened in that Western Tennessee National Park, but I do have enough to let people know the truth. Semi-truth, anyways. For the safety and privacy purposes like I stated previous, I'm withholding a lot of personal information such as names, exact locations, and unit information, referring to smaller stuff that I don't think even these scary 3-letter groups could really trace. Even if they cared, I hope they don't. Like I said, I'm a part of a SOCOM Green Beret. You all know who the Green Berets are. You should. My team is nicknamed Raider, a general theme in our company naming things after warrior culture as terms. Raider, Artemis, Barbarian, Centurion, and so on. It's a 10-man element. The team lead, our way too salty Georgian captain, with a warrant officer, a medic, a comm sergeant, and 6 weapons sergeants. Our captain decided this way was best. Considering we're all in one piece after our last mission, he was right. Our weekend was calm and boring as we got rotated on QRF, the Quick Reaction Force, for the month. QRF means that if someone, somewhere needs the green-eyed boogeyman of the Western world, we were ready to kit up and be there at a moment's notice. It just so happened, right when some of us were getting ready to head to the bar and to have our 2 singular freaking authorized beers of QRF month, we were called. When we raced back to our cop and got our shit ready, the captain came with some surprising information. We would be able to probably make it back for those beers because we were heading to West Tennessee, of all places. We didn't know what the status was yet. Command didn't give us any information. What the OPFOR was, what weapons they had, what the layout of the area was. Nothing. But being the QRF team, Raiders still kitted up and we were at the HLZ in less than 20 minutes. While we waited for our transport, the captain finally got some information. Apparently, a facility in the middle of uninhabited restricted woods of a national park had activated a distress signal. The woods that it was situated in was a large national park in, like I said, Western Tennessee, with a long history of disappearances on its now frequently closed and blocked off trails and campsites. This raised a few questions. What was this facility? Why was it in the middle of a national park? What happened to need to roll out the angriest Green Beret team this side of the East Coast to act as its backup? Why were we going there in an hour? Someone in Libya or someone across Eurasia might need us to back them up. The captain acknowledged all of these questions, but assured us that's all he knew. He had been with our team for years now, several deployments to the box and back, and he had always been straight up with us. It's how we knew that he was lying. Our transport finally arrived. 160th Thor, Night Stalkers, an aviation unit that's been around for nearly 40 years, having dragged every single kind of SOCOM unit to every single part of the world. We expected the Black Hawk that they brought, but the armed escort of 2 birds that came with them was a surprise. We were in domestic America, we were going to Tennessee. Why were they here? Even with the Night Stalkers flying at top speeds across several states, it still took us a couple of hours to reach our landing point. The inside of that bird going full throttle was deafening. Even with the electronic headsets that we were sporting, it was ear-splitting. And yet, while sitting next to the captain, I could tell that he was speaking to someone on a different frequency. This was off because normally he would go to the comm sergeant and have to use his radio, but he had a side channel filled in his radio, talking to someone, writing down incoming information. I was able to peek over and saw some of the things that he was writing. Mass call, close quarters op 4, no blue 4 on X. The birds touched down in the middle of an empty parking lot outside of the local ranger station. We filed out into the open area, and then the birds took off. The captain chimed in on our team net. Radio Romero, this is Raider Lead. Get on the net and have them hold orbit in case we need close air. Break. He then broke transmission and talked to us. All Raiders, hold outside and take up security. I'm gonna get the freaking Ragnar. Prepare for a hasty-ass ramp brief. I just got more information. We all took positions behind some of the parked vehicles the Rangers would use. Just to clear things up, our team was outfitted in JPNVG, also known as quad nods, 4-barrel night vision optics that provide an almost daytime-like view of our surroundings. Couple that with our pecs mounted on our rifles, allowing us to see and shoot anything at night. As the military says, we own the night. The tree line in front of us was lit up like a goddamn operator rape party as the captain walked back. Nods down, as the ranger currently on shift followed him. He keyed into our net and we could hear him through our headsets. All Raiders, this is Lead. New information states that the facility has suffered a mass cal situation. Break. Mass cal means mass casualties. Enemy Op 4 unidentified. However, ongoing net during distress calls indicates that Op 4 is extremely dangerous and engages at close range. Break. There is no Blue 4 on site. I repeat, Maine has stated that there is no Blue 4 on site, and we are to drop in any and all packs we see. A few seconds passed as the captain looked back to the park ranger. Many additional comments, Ranger Clements. The man was maybe in his mid-40s, balding. He scratched the back of his neck, clearing his throat before speaking. I heard a lot of gunfire coming from down there. Don't split up, whatever you do. In these woods, don't split up. Our medic laughed. Well, that's just comforting. The captain nodded to the man as he headed back in. Everyone watch your 6s, 12s, and freaking 5s, let's go. We picked up and moved out. Everybody had their kind of final moments type of readiness drill they did before they stepped onto the path into the woods. It's the same type of shit we did before stepping off on the fobs and compounds back east. I let out one final breath of hot air in the cold. Our medic slapped the side of his helmet, hyping himself up. The captain pulled out and kissed a small crucifix necklace from underneath his combat shirt. We headed down the pathway following the captain in a staggered column. Our infrared lasers scanned the trees, rocks, and foliage around us, looking desperately for any hostiles that lurked in the darkness. Though to our paranoid readiness, nothing appeared, but something was definitely following us. When we move through forest environments, you listen to the animals around you, the crickets, the birds, the movements of animals in what direction they're heading, how fast. Moving down that path, we couldn't hear a goddamn thing. It's common when you're a group of heavily armed green men moving through a forest at night that some of the squirrels and birds will run the hell away, but not the crickets or the bird songs in the distance. There's a certain level of ambience that animals will maintain even if they detect humans around. There was none of that, nothing. Not a cricket, a bird, a cicada, nothing. Silent professionals, it's in our name. So, when I could hear the guide 10 meters ahead of me breathing as we moved through that dead forest, it told me that something else was here in these woods with us. A predator, and that the forest was more afraid of it than us. After a long stretch of marching down the trail, the captain held a hand up, signaling a halt. As it got down to my part of the column, the midsection, he called over a radio. "This is lead. On me. Time now." We quickly rushed up to what we saw was a metal chain link fence. 4 of our weapons sergeants and the medic took up security covering the wood line behind us, as I and the other remaining one went up to the gate with the captain. The park's trail carried on for a few more meters before stopping dead into some trees. A dirt path broke off and formed a gravel one that led into a sectioned off area behind a chain link fence and gate. A no trespassing sign hung high, and just beyond the gate, we could see a small guard shack. The captain tried to signal whoever might be in there by switching on the surefire tack light on his rifle, shining it and lasso waving it all over the booth. However, upon stopping and centering on the doorway, we saw a large amount of blood splashed on the back wall and pooled over the floor, an arm laying halfway out of the doorframe. The captain looked to the other weapons sergeant with us. "Get your kit," he nodded, slinging his rifle as he dropped his assault pack, digging out a small pair of bolt cutters. Each of our weapons sergeants carried a different loadout depending on what we needed. One could be a gunner, another's a grenadier. I can't name him, but the breech man, as I guess I'll call him, always carried a breech kit just in case. He walked over to the lock, but just as he got the blades of the cutter around the lock, we heard it. It sounded like it came from everywhere, and yet far away at the same time. Maybe it was the echo of the forest, or maybe something attributed to its abilities. It sounded like a woman yelling in pain and agony, and yet the voice was half gargled, like it was morphed with that of a dying animal, as it had an underlying low-tone pitch beneath it. It got under the skin of everyone. Those pulling security immediately jumped their shit, scanning left, right, up and down. Hell, even the medic, a big stocky dude, grew up in Brooklyn, played football before he joined, meaning he is as yoked as all hell when he got to our unit. The guy who once stuck his frickin' fingers into a man's neck to plug his blood. He looked around nervously. The hell was that? Our weapons sergeant with the M46 shook his head as he scanned the far-off terrain, muttering in a low voice. "It's some horror movie bullshit right now." I remember holding my rifle's grip tight. Everyone was equally unnerved. Everyone except the captain. He just told us to press on. "Fuck's sake, tighten your jockstrap, let's go." He snapped the lock off. Immediately, the captain and I moved in and cleared the small booth, as 2 more weapons sergeants and our medic took up covering down the gravel road. It was a guard, no name tape or company logo, decked out in a black plate carrier, the plate carrier of which had been torn into, as a large hole covered the entire area of his solar plexus, which was now fragmented and broken inside of his mulched upper body. No bullet entry or exit wounds, just a large frickin' stab wound that looks like he got ran through by a frickin' lamppost. My breath still caught in my throat as I grunted to clear it. The captain stepped out of the small booth, spitting hard into the grass, shaking his head. The medic prodded him. "What was it like?" He grunted, walking to the front of our formation. "It doesn't matter, Doc." We formed up and moved down the gravel road in a wedge column. The captain and 3 weapons sergeants in the front wedge, with the medic, me and the other 2 weapons sergeants in the back one, the comm sergeant in the middle. We entered the facility lot. Immediately, the comm sergeant linked up with the captain, and I could hear him alerting Maine.
"This is Raider. Lead, we've reached the building."
Though it makes me wonder if he used the comm sergeant's radio to reach our HQ. Who was he talking to on that other channel? The lot was clear, and we got a good look at the facility. It was a gray concrete rectangle, maybe the size of a small gas station. Floodlights mounted on the bottom illuminated the gravel lot up to the dense, shadowy woodline that lay just beyond the chain link fence. The woodline that was still quiet. The mass kill carnage we were told about was present outside of the building. Several guards, all in various states of mutilation, similar to the gate guard, were strewn about the gravel lot. However, unlike the gate guard, strangely, they were in heavier body armor, with rifles capable of going automatic, and spent brass everywhere. Me and some of the other guys got in line and cleared out the back. Exasperated breathing and muttering came from all of us. The captain chimed in.
"Raiders, on me. Time now."
We hauled ass back to him as we stacked up at the door. Flowing in, we were greeted to a lobby, torn up, furniture thrown everywhere. Impact marks from rounds hitting the concrete lined the walls and ceiling. One dead guard slumped against a red-stained part of the wall, the other in a crumpled heap. The woman at the desk, not a guard, just a freaking staff member, sat back in her chair, her entire torso area torn apart. As we passed by her and headed through the double doors behind her, her empty dead eyes met mine. The comm sergeant eyed her as well as we moved for the door. "Sir, she was unarmed."
"I can see that.
Keep chatter to a minimum." We cleared through the double doors to be greeted by a porcelain hallway leading into a set of stairs heading to a sublevel. The entire surface, ceiling, walls, floor, was lined with ceramic white tiles. Ceramic white tiles that were like the rest of the scene so far, stained with the blood, guts, and even brain matter of the unlucky guards laid out all the way down the stairs. I counted 8. 17 so far. A flickering light could be seen through the wire glass windows of the double doors at the bottom. The captain ordered us to flow in through both sides, and we did. Pushing in, we could see we entered into a T-style hallway. It gets a bit complicated here. Either end of the T ended while the middle one shot forward far down into the hall, leading to 2 reinforced blast doors at the very end. 2 immediate labs on either side were reinforced with more wire glass, and despite several cracks, impact marks, bullet holes, and even holes made in the glass, they held. "This shit can't be ballistic glass," our comm sergeant muttered. "Why didn't they just take cover in here?" the medic said. The captain sighed. "Seems to be pointing to a surprise attack from the inside. Emphasis on surprise, jackass." The medic fired back. "Well, sure, but it's just a door." While the hallways outside were a mess of blood, gore, guards thrown around as they were ripped apart, creating a mess of bodies, weapons, and more spent brass. The lab techs had their white coats stained with their own blood. My blood, and I think everyone else's, started to run cold as the pieces came together. Whatever killed them did so indiscriminately. We formed a rolling T heading down the hall. I was on the right, with the gunner taking center, and another guy on the left. The captain pushed forward, leading us from behind. The windowed labs ended halfway, with 2 solid white doors near the double doors at the end on either side, leading to closed-off labs. The captain had us pull guards on both of these side doors as the gunner aimed back down the hallway. Everyone else took up security wherever it was needed. The captain eyed the door, feeling the cracks and lines of the blast doors, looking for gaps that didn't exist. Blood had slowly leaked out of the bottom, causing him to pick up his boot and eye it, and yet, no openings existed. An electronic pad was positioned on the right side of the doors. The captain eyed it. It was a hand scanner. I didn't even think those actually existed. He jumped on that private frequency I kept mentioning.
"I'm at the doors." Yeah, at the far end. There's a hand scanner.
He waited a few seconds of deafening silence. He made an internal chuckle as he walked over to the dead body of a guard, kicking its arm.
Got one right here. I'm sorry, repeat last. Alive?
He rubbed his face, cursing under his breath.
Fuck.
He shook his head, turning on the white light of his rifle and scanning the corpses.
This place is a goddamn slaughterhouse. How am I gonna...
A crash emanated from the white lab door to the right of the blast doors, the one that I was covering. Everyone paused for a moment, as a second weapons sergeant aimed his laser at it. The captain turned, aiming his laser at the door as he approached.
Might have 1, or might have Op 4 actual. Wait, 1, over.
The captain formed up as first man in the stack, as unusual practice, but everyone else fell behind. I was the second man, and 2 more made third and fourth. A weapons sergeant felt the edges of the door, and then tried the handle. Locked. Him trying the handle must have alerted whatever was inside, because a voice bellowed out. I'm in here. Please, I'll let you in, just don't shoot. The doorman looked to the captain, who nodded. Might have blue for inside. Stay sharp. Wait on me to fire. There wasn't supposed to be any blue for on site. The door's electronic lock opened. The doorman grabbed the handle and pulled it open, as the 4 of us entered the room. We pushed through. The captain hooked left, I pushed forward. The other 2 followed one of us respectively. Our lasers centered on the room, and a pair of hands emerging from behind a lab table. Please, the voice weakly shouted. The captain stormed over. Hands, now. I'll shoot you, I swear to God, if you don't put your hands up. As the person stood up, we saw the hands were connected to a scientist, possibly late 30s, stringy hair with circular glasses. Glasses that flew off when the captain closed the distance, shoving him against a metal cabinet, spittle flying from the bearded mouth behind the NVGs as he barked at him. ID, where is it? Show it! The captain began roughly searching the lab tech as he pulled out his ID. He grabbed it, shoving him to the weapons sergeant on his side of the room. The lab tech was kicked down to his knee. The captain jumped back on the frequency.
I'm back. Possible blue 4. Prepare for ID code.
He read it off in phonetics before he got the response. He looked at the weapons sergeant guarding the lab tech. Get his ass up. Please, I don't know what's going on. I was just running some chemical tests. We've got to get out of here before... The captain got in the man's face. Shut up. He did. You know what you've been doing. I know what you sons of bitches been doing out here. Open them doors right now. The man was shocked as the captain continued. Open the goddamn doors! With a point from the captain, the weapons sergeant shoved the man forward into the doorframe. The man crumpled a little bit as the captain laughed. Take your sweet time, doctor. Let's go. I picked him up by his shirt collar and dragged him over to the blast doors. The captain pushed him out of my grip, shoving him face first into the doors. Hand on the scanner, now! As the captain grabbed the man by his wrist, the lab tech struggled to get free. Please, I don't have access. I hurt my hand trying to hide. Let me go. The medic winced a bit at the sight, uncharacteristically of a Green Beret, especially for a jaded-as-all-hell medic. He spoke up. Cap, come on. The captain just turned, staring daggers into the man as he wrestled for the man's wrist. Just wait till you see. I'm telling ya. As the man struggled against the captain, the weapons sergeant came up from behind, shoving the man into the blast door, allowing the captain to easily place it on the scanner. The scanner lit up a bright blue, as several lines traced and looked over his handprint. And then flashes green, as the electronic locks of the blast doors began to open up. The captain dropped the man. Well, goodness gracious, what do you know? The doors slowly pulled open. The room was dark. Red flashing emergency lights flashed all around, as the sound of broken glass scraped against the door. A stream of murky blue liquid mixed in with the blood of several guards' bodies that were revealed at the doorway leaked out into the hall. The captain grabbed the lab tech by the collar, dragging him to his feet. "Y'all know these men, Doctor. Friends?" The captain shoved him through the doorway, the lab tech slipping on the fluids and glass, cutting his right hand with the winds. We flowed in and... Jesus. I said this at the start. I've been all over. I've seen mass graves that terrorist cells have used in far-off countries, filled with entire villages worth of people. I've seen kill dens inside tunnel systems. This, it surpassed all of that. Every horror, every war crime, multiple times over. A series of gigantic glass tubes line the walls made out of monitors, hard drives, and computer systems. The path of carnage led through the pile of guards at the doorway. That makes 24 armed personnel that were taken out by something. What really bothered me was what was in those murky, blue and green freaking glass tubes. As big as a refrigerator, connected to a port at the bottom and top. Tubes and wires inside connecting to. The captain shoved the lab tech into a glass tube. The pop of the man's nose echoed off the empty area as he grabbed his nose. "Well, Doc, which one was it? Which goddamn tube?" Tube? What was he talking about? How did he know? Who was on that frequency? The lab tech spit out blood leaking into his mouth as the captain, standing at 6'5", a giant even among his team full of brawny SOF operators, picked him up by the collar of his blue undershirt. I don't... Two weapon sergeants ducked out of the way as the captain got in his face, shoving him against the left side wall, causing the monitors and computer systems to beep and light up. "Oh, you don't know? And that your little hand opens the room you didn't have access to," he roared, abandoning all silence and discretion now as the man began to sputter and sob. Please, I... The captain gritted his teeth. He quickly flipped up his nods and stared dagger into the man's soul. "How many people have you snatched off that trail? How many? What kinds of butchering do you do to those kids before you stuck them in there? Which one escaped?" Kids. Butchering. Something in my mind stopped and I switched on my rifle's tack light. A heavy pit in my stomach formed as I flashed it on the tubes. There were people in those tubes. They were people. Wire and tubes now poked into see-through and murky flesh. All the bodies of the kidnapped floated, mutated, dissected, and changed. One person's skin ran reptilian-like up their left arm, before merging with a strange, gaping hole in their chest, their skull protruding out of its skin in their head. My breathing started a bit as I backed up a few steps, glass crunching underneath my boots. Curses muttered by the others in the room as we all began to look. Another one's open mouth was sealed at the front. Two more jagged, messed up sets of teeth poked out either side. Their eyes were sealed, skin covering defined sockets on their head. The medic fleshed his on one where their spine stuck out through their back. Their vertebrae was larger than a normal person's, the bones sticking out inches longer in some areas. Jesus, man. This shit's... He gagged a bit, coughing as he looked away. I had to pry my eyes. My mind was frying just looking at it. They better be dead. Oh, I swear to the Lord himself if they ain't, the captain said sternly, as the man sobbed and nodded. Yes. The captain raised an eyebrow. You sure? Yes, they died during surgery. If you're lying to me, I swear to Christ, I will make you euthanize every single one. The captain shoved the lab tech forward into the center of the aisle. I looked down, shaking my head as the images of those things burned into the film of my brain. Where's she gone, Doctor? The captain said, sternly staring up at the man, who sobbed as he shrugged. Where is it? The man continued to cry. It escaped. It killed everyone. It cut through the guards. It cut through everyone. All of my friends. This caused the captain to nearly bust a blood vessel from the look he gave him, balling up his fist and driving the armored knuckle of his ugly glove into the gut of the lab tech. This caused the smaller, weaker lab tech to buckle over, dropping to his hands and knees, now favoring an injured hand and a probably burst spleen. Your friends? Your friends? You mean the friends that kidnapped a 20-year-old girl and a 14-year-old son, and turned them into monsters? What about them? This earned only more sobs from the lab tech, as the captain turned, hands on his hips, and scoffed. He looked at the medic, who only stared back through his nods. The captain turned to look at him. You've got to the count of 10, and if you don't give me a single whereabouts of the thing, I will start grabbing tools and cutting your little weasel ass up like y'all did to these kids. The captain loomed over the man, grabbing him by his hair. Sir, please, the lab tech pleaded. 1, 2, 3, the captain counted. Some looked away, others shook their heads. Not out of shame of our leader. There wasn't a man in the room who wouldn't do what he did right now after seeing them. It's in the woods. You heard it. It did its freaky yowl just like 10 minutes ago. The captain laughed, letting go of the man's hair as he whipped his head forward. Y'all hear that? It's in the fucking woods. He pulled out his M17, his 9mm sidearm, pulling the slide back a bit to make sure it was chambered. 4, 5, 6. The man stood up, and at this point, I kicked out his extended leg, dropping him back to his knees. The man looked at me, and then at the captain. You can't do this. This is illegal. Before the captain could finish counting, we heard it. It echoed all the way down the facility halls, reverberating off the glass tubes in the room. That half feminine, half monstrous cry. Except this time, it didn't come from far in the mountains or the trees. It came from up the stairs. And then the lights went out. I don't know if it was prior damage to the facility, the electric works, or something else, but they zapped out. The lights in the halls, the lights on the stairs, the lights in the room, the electronics, the lights in the tanks, all of it. It cried out again, and this time, I think I heard it say, "Help me." Anyone who had their nods up flicked them down as all of us trained our lasers down the dark hall beyond the doors. The slight shakiness of all the green lasers told the same stories. All of the death, all of the shit in the tanks. It had everyone spooked. The captain came up alongside me and the medic. He looked back at the lab tech. You run. You die. The man swallowed and smothered his misery. I know. The captain corrected him in a low tone. No, you really don't. The creature cried out again. Help me. The sounds of something hard impacting the tile floor sounded out as it approached us through the dark abyss. More footsteps, and then another cry. Help me! The gunner lets out a shaky breath as he cracks his neck. More footsteps, and then another cry. Help me! It's maybe 5 meters from the door now. Lord Almighty, the captain muttered. I couldn't see much in that darkness then, but I saw what everyone else saw. I saw enough. Its body was easily 6 feet tall. 2 gigantic, bony, mantis-like legs that were dark from blood stepped into the doorway. Its head was smooth, its large teeth shining in the darkness, and its eyes glowed like an animal. Its eyes glowed. It could see us. We all froze. We had rifles trained on it, a freaking machine gun trained on it, a room full of Green Berets, the best of the best, and everyone froze. The captain was the first to fire, slamming his trigger as he shot a 223 death into that crime against existence. The gunner opened up as well, and then the medic. 2 more weapons sergeants also shot. It yelled at us, cried out, like an agonized woman pleading for help. And then it lunged. running and slamming through a test tube. Glass flew everywhere, causing several of us to shoot our faces as the water flooded on the floor, and the deformed body that was inside flopped down near our feet. A horrendous, rotted smell filled the air. "Jesus!" the medic sputtered out, gagging a bit as he kicked it away. The creature now screamed. As a rifleman that had jumped near backed up, it leapt on top of him, shoving that bony mandible into his left shoulder, pinning him to the ground as he screamed, thrashing his elbow into the thing as he kicked its stomach. But it didn't attack him. It just eyed the scientist. He attempted to run for his life, but the thing jumped on top of him, pinning his face first into the murky wet floor. And that's when I noticed the 6 smaller human-like arms on its torso. Its main mandible pinned him to the ground. The arms, some normal, some with bony spikes for fingers, others just lined with sharp teeth, began to rip into the man's back. The lab tech screamed. His lab coat was torn open as it began to dig down into his back. Some still fired shots, but it didn't even react. It didn't even move. Just continued to tear into that vile, but poor son of a bitch. The captain's voice lit up the comms as he and the medic rushed to pick the man up and heave him on the captain's shoulder.
"We can't engage him here. Outside, now."
He was right. It thrived on close quarters. It ran guys through before they could pick it apart. We all ran, nerves shot, weapons hot from fire into a thing that didn't react. The power off, so we couldn't close those blast doors. All we could do was run. I nearly slipped on glass as we booked it out of there, firing some desperate pot shots into the lab with the gunner. The lab tech's screams echoed throughout the hallway as we booked it up the stairs. It was gonna be done with him soon. The gunner and I covered the captain as we broke out into the open air. The smell of rotten death replaced by the open piney air of the forest. Several men broke out road flares, tossing them everywhere, giving us much needed light in the form of greens, blues, reds, and purples. The captain dropped the man behind a beaten up and wrecked sedan as the medic began to patch him up. The gunner deployed his bipod and aimed at the doors of the facility from the car's hood. The captain positioned different men to where they all could fire on the door, far enough away from the thing's grasp.
"Romero, get in that net and call in that air."
The comm sergeant began to go to work behind the sedan. I took aim behind a large SUV with several others. We all aimed at the door. The screaming had stopped. The silence was broken by its bony mandibles as it rushed out into the open air. And with all the flares and chem lights and even the captain's tack light, we finally got a good look. Its skin was a mix between pink from its exposed muscles to a see-through clear layer covering the other parts. Bony calcium-like armor had formed over a lot of its body, and its back to legs formed smaller mandible-like features at the back. And its head, an exposed skull, all 2 human eyes peering out at us in rage, as its larger, unhinged jaw opened, and it roared out its deafening cry at us. The gunner was the first to open up. The blast of 556 tore through the armor on its mandible legs and torso. The thing recoiled at first and then hissed as it charged forward. The captain ran from his place in front of the sedan's side. The thing stuck its 2 large mandibles into the roof, badly denting it. The medic quickly covered the wounded weapons sergeant, shooting him as the thing peered down at the 2. The captain quickly got its attention, aiming fire at the back of its head. It roared with a vengeance as it charged at the captain. He fell back to the sedan, running out of our line of fire as the thing barreled towards us. The thing stuck its mandible inside the hood, impaling it, and then another, just to my left. I circled around and behind it as I fired. It cried out, blood now pouring from its wounds as its calcium plating was cracking and falling off en masse. The thing turned to me, and as I flicked my M4 to auto and laid into it, it just barreled at me, shoving me to the ground. Its smaller, demonic hands reached for me as I kicked them away. Its jaw snapped as I held my rifle in the way, shielding my face as it gnawed on the metal. The gunner then blasted a chunk of its exposed skull away, staggering it as it turned. The captain whipped his stock into the thing's head, and then backpedaled as he fired off another burst of rounds. The thing turned to him, roaring viciously as the captain dropped his empty mag, He slapped in a fresh one as the thing lunged at him, both mandibles raised. The glass exploded out of the SUV's windows as the captain dropped levels, firing into its stomach as he circled out back into the open. The creature roared as it went to move for him again, but it couldn't. Its large mandibles were stuck all the way inside of the vehicle. The captain let his rifle hang slung on his front as he reached for something on his kit. An M67 fragmentation grenade. "Get back!" Everyone who was in the open ducked for cover. The gunner and several weapons sergeants retreated behind a series of concrete jersey barriers. I ran and I slid behind the sedan, helping the medic to shield our wounded battle buddy. I heard the distinct sound of the spoon flying and the whistling of the grenade. The captain vaulted himself over the car hood with the comm sergeant, covering his radio operator's head as they both went prone. The explosion was thunderous. The shockwave of the grenade shook everyone and even rattled me a bit from being so close. Shrapnel and fragments flew everywhere, impacting the concrete barriers, the building, and windows on the sedan that already weren't broken. They were shattered. A few seconds passed as we all hesitantly started to lift our heads, and then dropped them as the SUV's gas tank seemingly erupted and detonated. Engulfing the wreck in a fireball too large, I felt like the flames were touching my freaking face. The captain popped up, aiming on top of the hood of the car. Then I and several others joined him, peeking from behind our points of cover as we looked to see if that had done it. The SUV was a burning skeleton. An inferno from all of the ignited gasoline covered the frame, the ground around it, and the beast, as it definitely pulled its last remaining mandible, its front left one, the only appendage that it had left, and it stumbled out from the flames. Its skin popped, its muscles boiled, and with all of the see-through skin and bone plating torn and burnt off, it gazed around, its eyes ruptured and melted.
"Help me."
The gravel crunched as its charred and still burning body slumped forward. The captain emerged from behind the Vic as only a few of us dared to approach the thing. He lifted his nods, this time pulling his M17 back up and aiming it at the thing's head. 3 shots into the thing's head, the damaged and charred skull caving in. A circle of light illuminated us as the rotary blades of the Blackhawk sounded out overhead. I shielded my face and I lifted my nods to avoid the spotlight blinding me.
Op 4, actual down. Building secure.
The ensuing hour was one that was just shrouded in, I don't know, mystery I guess. The captain went against prior missions of telling us to go prone and pull security, putting the gunner at the sedan by the gate, and telling the rest of us to watch the woodline. When the vans showed up, that's when he told us to chill out. They weren't really vans, they were more like armored trucks. And not for the sake of being classified and remaining anonymous, I can't divulge a lot about them. I'm definitely not saying the black shirts were wearing black multicam combat uniforms with kits, weapons, and gear available that would definitely make them a private sector group. I'm not saying that their uniforms are sterilized with all patches, logos, and markers stripped. I'm also not saying that the hazmat suits looked way beyond anything our MOAB systems has. I'm not saying they brought several metal cases in from their armored Vics, and I'm not saying they brought an advanced surveillance drone with them. I will say, they weren't really hostile. Shit, one even offers us a cigarette. The bird landed at the opposite side of the building, the open lot where they eventually told us to head. We prepared our guy for case vac on a litter with the Blackhawk and loaded us up as the captain finished talking to some guy in a suit. He was much shorter, maybe 5'8". He bore the look of a younger but still weathered man. His hair was slicked back and had a hard part. A slight bump underneath his sport coat told me that he was armed. The captain eventually joined us. As soon as the aviation crew shut the door, he popped his helmet off, much to their anger, and slumped back in his seat. When we touched base and got back to the cop, our sister team, Artemis, replaced us on QRF. I've been thinking about that shit for days now. But what those people did to them in that lab, what the captain said. They kidnapped them, cut them up, changed them. All for what? Some sick fantasy? Who the hell even owned that lab? There were no US markings, no logos, zip. Like I said before, there's still a lot that I don't know, but what I do know is that those fuckers got exactly what they deserved. That thing crying out for help, pleading for us to make its suffering end. The more I think about it, the more it makes me sick. I don't know what the hell those guys were that relieved us. They didn't have any markings. Some of them were speaking German if my memory serves. But whoever they were, I hope they learned from their mistakes and never tamper with that evil shit again.